people are expressing this loneliness factor all over the place, right? This is like a really known thing. I mean, I've even seen stuff from researchers saying like the predictor of longevity at this point, like if you're going to talk about longevity, is like deep friendships, essentially. Like that's like a stronger predictor of your longevity than almost any like traditional health factor, basically. Like if you think of it relative to sleep or muscle mass or obesity or something like that, like basically that like it's the thing. But I do think you and I, inhabiting the space of D2C land, specifically D2C entrepreneurs, there is the entrepreneurial thing, and I certainly feel what you're saying, is that you like, I mean, like right now, you and I are talking, and it's producing content or whatever, right? Although it's not really like the point of this, right? But like we could hang up this, I could work, I could finish my day at 5 o'clock, and I absolutely could spend the next few hours after that working more to generate more money, and it would probably create more money for myself, right? Like if I did that instead of went and like hung out with my kids and my wife or whatever it is, I'd probably do that. And so that temptation is so ever present. And once you do the math on this sort of thing, it's like, wait a minute. I mean, what is my dollars per hour that I'm saying no to like hang out with my friends or hang out with my kids and wife, and that becomes like a tyrannical calculation. You know what I mean? Like it's just like, so yeah, it's a really what you're speaking to. I think this combination of loneliness with like the entrepreneurial work for yourself like thing is a real thing that does make it so that work becomes all consuming, I think.
Yeah. And even it happens to people who are not entrepreneurs. I think ironically, maybe now, So my last full-time role before I started my consulting practice was at a very big company, which was a complex, highly matrixed organization where people had a lot of meetings. And I was looking and kind of getting a view into my boss's day and their calendar. And like they started taking meetings at 8 a.m. and didn't finish until 7 p.m., like consistently. So and then they were getting work done, whatever like work product they had to produce. And I knew that like, I didn't want that. I knew I wanted to have a kid. I didn't want to spend the entire day at work and then see my kid, like tuck them in at night. Now that I'm working as a consultant, there is definitely that protected time. But I'm constantly like fighting the urge, like you said, to, the kids go to bed, my husband's traveling. Am I going to zone out? Am I going to chill out? Or am I going to like try to do more work? And I think it's hard because we both work in metrics oriented part of marketing. And so I know, at least for myself, I get a lot of gratification out of like seeing the numbers go up as a result of something that I'm doing. So I'm constantly having to fight the urge of like, oh, I want to comp what I made last year, or I want to grow it by 20%. When there's actually like, I took a maternity leave this year, so I'm not going to comp what I made last year. Like it's constantly like beating down that urge.
How much better would your e-commerce business work if you had cheaper COGS, faster lead times, lower MOQs, and better payment terms? That is possible for you by working with my friends at Move Supply Chain, the Philippines-based supply chain expert agency that will help you go track down the best manufacturing options for your business. I worked with Move recently on a business where Move talked to 50 manufacturers in a week and then another 30 packaging manufacturers like 2 weeks after that. They're incredible. They bring deep expertise. They know what to do to bring value to your supply chain, which I'm convinced is the most under-optimized part of your business, and it has outsized impact on your success. Go to movesupplychain.com to see what they can do for you. It's also affordable. Go do it right now. I remember talking to what you just described. First of all, is right that like the people in a more traditional corporate setting definitely feel this. And I think, especially you're in New York, right? Like there's just going to be an element where work becomes kind of all consuming as like a normal thing. And that's probably true in a lot of places, right? But I think especially when you're in New York, you're gonna see that's definitely part of the cultural thing there. The other thing is, I agree with you that like part of the thing that was appealing to me about running my own business was the time freedom. And yet I always think back to a conversation I had with Dave Recook, who was talking about when he was going through cancer, and it was not a form of cancer that was going to kill him, and he knew that. But when he was going through cancer, he was like, at the doctor, like going to chemo sessions or something like that, like checking his ad account. And his reflection about that was, he said that, on my podcast, his reflection about that was because, first of all, it wasn't life threatening, right? So it was just like a thing he had to get through for the day. So that's part of it. It didn't, whatever. So there's that. But he was also saying that part of it is because it's fun. Like it's a game to win. And you, like you said, like you see the numbers go up and you like it. And so it becomes all consuming. And I think that's actually really fundamental to the challenge of navigating this thing here, this like sort of social ties, broader life values, your relationship with your family and your relationship to work. The challenge is that work is pretty fun and pretty interesting, Yeah. But I think for me, what I've experienced is that while that is true, it actually isn't as ultimately deeply satisfying as other things. And it's almost more like maybe a way, this is probably a clunky analogy, but it's almost like at times like eating candy or something, where it's like, it is really appealing and you do it because you like it, not because you feel forced to. And that I think is the way I used to think about what work would be like, is that it's like your boss is standing over your shoulder telling you have to do it or whatever. Like in my case, if I'm tempted to do that, it's because I want it. It's because there's like a desire to go and build more and do more things. And at least for me, it's actually not even primarily about how many dollars I make at the end of the day. It's like, I mean, that's nice, but like, it's just fun. I just like the work. I find it energizing. Certainly easier to take my mind there than playing with a 4-year-old, where it's like, it's just that requires something really different of me. And as much as I love my boys, like, it's just, it taps into something that's harder to tap into. So there's a temptation, but what I found is that when I'm able to actually fully set that aside for a while, the potential depth of joy that I can experience in these other areas of life is meaningfully richer and fuller. And so it's a big deal to be able to do that. So like in that respect, it is like the candy analogy, where it's like, actually there's a way to, not that it's a problem to eat candy like occasionally, but just that like, there's actually some ways in which you can be nourished and feel better if you resist eating candy more often. You know what I mean? I don't know. That's, again, like I said, it's probably a clunky analogy, but like that is the thing. That is the way that I'm thinking about like the sort of what's fundamental to the challenge in my mind.
Yeah. The way I was having a discussion with someone about this, and an interesting analogy came up out of that, which is, it's kind of like playing a video game where, is it a skill you can hone?
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
Like, is it a thing that gives you a sense of satisfaction? Yes. Is it accomplishing anything in the real world? No, I mean, debatable. Like with a video game, probably not. With our careers, like, that's debatable. And so it's, I don't think that hard work or marketing talent or whatever you want to call this stuff is necessarily a virtue. It's almost like a skill or a feedback loop, but you have to be really cognizant of like what's the input that's getting fed into it, because it will just, you can just take yourself on a wild goose chase and like wake up in 5 or 10 years and realize that you're not where you actually want to be, or like you're not doing things that are like truly, truly nourishing you and like making you feel like you've made the most out of your life. Getting into deep territory now.
This is where I expected us to go. This is great. Yeah, this is great.
And that's been like, that's been the story of my career, really. A lot of the things I've done, or a lot of the paths that I've set out on, have been kind of like a reaction to something, or I wanted to prove someone wrong about something, versus trying to think about like where I actually wanted to wind up. And so the consulting practice was really the first major step away from that, because my motivation there was, I want to work with people who I'm happy to help, who treat me with respect, and like I want to have more control over my day. And I want to like architect my work around the things that I'm actually naturally good at, instead of like being in a corporate environment where I felt like I had to become like I had to rizz myself up. I don't know. I had to become a master talker. I just, that's not me. I can't be that. I can't be always on like that, like all the time.
Yeah.